Osiris.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 53. This is the beginning of our series about Revolution in Motion, the new space opera album by the Disco Biscuits. It's an incredible techno rock opera story, aka the space opera, about a band that goes to outer space and inadvertently saves the universe. Saves Earth and everything else in the universe too. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can do with good music, folks. You can become a marathon runner with good music. You can, ski alone regularly with good music. You can travel the world with good music. You can be alone with your thoughts with good music. You can have a friend at the darkest times of your life. Good music. And that's what 2024 is about, folks. We're doing good music all year long. I heard a bunch of billionaire types talking about how they're buying bunkers and buying radiation suits. And I just don't understand these people who are entrusted with running our whole, capitalism is get capital to the most efficient users of the capital. And then so they give all this money to billionaires and then the billionaires take it and spend it on radiation suits and concrete holes in the ground. And we did this before, folks. We did this in the 50s. There's a bunch of concrete holes in the ground from the 50s that nobody ever used. And the atomic scare was pretty damn real back then. Just as real as it is now, if probably more, because they didn't know how to control it back then. They didn't know what to do. I guess they don't know that anymore anyways. But still, I would just like to say to all the billionaires out there that are buying radiation suits, just do something good for someone else. Because your radiation, the chance that the world explodes and you happen to have built a bunker that saves you, what good does that do you? You're going to watch old Friends reruns till you're and play ping pong and eat canned soup. It almost would be better to go out. And if you're going to go out satisfied. And the way to get satisfied, folks, is to help other people. That's the way to be happy. Everybody knows it. The billionaires know it, but nobody wants to do it because it's work. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And sometimes you interface with some crabbies, some crabby people who are annoying. Let's face it. That's the real downside. But still, I'm sure the guys selling radiation suits are kind of crabby. And definitely the people who are pouring the concrete in your bunker are probably a little crabby too. Unless they're getting really overpaid. And then they're probably real smiley that you're paying them to dump concrete in a hole in the ground. You know what I mean? Which I see the value of. At least you're spending the money. I mean, so many billionaires just sit on it. They don't do anything. It's like they can take it with them or something. It's like giving it to their kids is such a great thing to do. I mean, the kids are just going to freak out on it too. I mean, in LA is filled with kids who have gigantic trust funds and are just not as happy as you would think they would be, And so my advice is, if you're at the point where you're starting to think about how you're going to react to nuclear fallout, pump the brakes, dog, and, go to a soup kitchen and serve soup. Send a kid to college. Support a family that is in need. Personally, just find somebody in your family that isn't as rich as you and help them, help people. That'll make you feel better. That'll make you feel satisfied. And then when the world explodes because of nuclear war, and you find out that your bunker wouldn't have worked anyways, then hey, you at least did something good. Hey, try that on for size. I'd also like to say that congratulations to Michigan for winning the college football playoff. The front seven of Michigan won the college football playoff. They beat Alabama. I mean, frankly, Alabama could have won that game. And they could not get the Michigan front seven to get out of the way so they could score the next touchdown. They settled for a field goal. And then Michigan was able to tie it up and go to overtime. And it was just it was enough good luck. I mean, look, they beat Michigan beat Alabama. They beat a good team, and then they won the playoffs. So I hand it to them. If they had gotten into the playoffs, played Florida State, and rolled them 63-3 or whatever that score was, then I would have been, a little concerned that college football is like that. But then again, it's kids playing football, so just let them have some fun. Let them win a championship every now and again. Great front seven, though. Incredible team. And I congratulate them on winning. Congratulations to Kaplan. He's a big Michigan guy. There's a bunch of my friends are big Michigan guys, so I hope they're happy with this one. It was a good one. Those games were really good. I watched them all, and I enjoyed it, and that's why college football rules. Real quick, just a little conversation before we get into this incredible episode that Max and Joey and myself are discussing. Everything you'd want to know about Revolution in Motion, the space opera. Characters, points of view, words, lyrics, songs, everything you would want to talk about. Let me just say real quick that I'm teaming up as Baba G, playing my Baba G instrument with guitar and the Baba G instrument and some vocals. I'm teaming up with DJ Brownie, and we're doing interlocking sets. We did it in Baltimore. It was a great success. And now we're going to do it again, potentially in LA, in Venice Beach, and then definitely at Agave in Avon, Colorado on February 8th. These are small venues. Tickets will sell out. The Agave venue is literally on the way from Aspen to Boulder. So if you're on the Biscuit Tour, that's a good night to play, go skiing, and then hang out and watch me and Brownie do interlocking sets and cool stuff. And then, Venice Beach is the day before the Biscuits play in LA. So come a day early, come to that show. These are small number shows. They'll probably sell out just because it's literally less than 300 tickets per venue. So we'll see you there. Just want to let you know because, we don't really have a marketing machine for those two acts yet. I guess Brownie kind of does. He's got a website, DJ Brownie. And, me, I could put a website up, but I'm too busy podcasting for you guys because I want to talk to you directly. I don't want to put a website up and have you look at pictures. I want to talk to your face and your ears. I want you to hold your headphones into your ears right now and listen to everything that I say. Everything. We have lots of Biscuit shows in 2024. Lots. We have lots of Bisco releases in 2024. Lots. We have new songs coming that are going to be on this tour that literally first couple shows in, new songs. So, you gotta come along, folks. You gotta come along for the good times and the good vibes, right? Yeah, good times, good vibes 24, baby. We're doing it. We're mass communicating. Let's do it.
Mass communicating. Mass communicating. Mass communicating.
Max here. A few updates before we get to our first installment in our exclusive 4-part series covering the Disco Biscuits' new concept album, Revolution in Motion, available wherever you download or stream music on March 29th, 2024. The Disco Biscuits and Touchdowns All Day have a lot of exciting things in the works for you over the next few months, starting with the release of Revolution in Motion, Chapter 1, and the accompanying mini-movie, which just dropped. Every few weeks from here on out until the end of March, the band is going to release another chapter in the saga for a total of 4, and each is going to be accompanied by its own animated video and a dedicated Touchdowns All Day episode like this one, where Jon, Joey, and I, and some special guests will explore the history and mythology of the space opera. Guys, I'm so excited for you to hear these episodes. I've been planning these for well over a year now, and I guarantee you that they will answer all of your remaining questions about the who, what, where, and why of Revolution in Motion. Ever wonder what a fuzzy is? Well, strap in because you're about to find out. And I'm going to say without any exaggeration, I've learned so much about this project over the course of conducting these interviews. My appreciation for what Jon, Joey, and the rest of the band have accomplished has only deepened. For all the latest news related to Revolution in Motion, please keep your eyes on discobiscuits.com and the band's official socials. That's at the Disco Biscuits on Instagram, at disco_biscuits on X, and now Disco Biscuits Official on TikTok. While you're at it, Jon and I and everyone here at Touchdowns All Day would really appreciate it if you would leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere where you're listening to the show. We love your feedback. We've loved all of the great words of encouragement that we've received since we revived the podcast with episode 50. But most importantly, those 5-star reviews help new listeners find us. And if you're liking what you're hearing with these new episodes, please consider sharing an episode with a friend. Maybe it's somebody who's never heard the Biscuits before, an old school fan who's fallen off tour. The Biscuits have so much going on right now. There's so much energy and enthusiasm around the band. This is the time. Got to strike when the iron is hot, guys, and we've got to use this opportunity to bring new people into the fold. In mere days, the Biscuits set out on their 35 show Why We Dance tour, coast to coast, covering the nation. Shows are selling out, and I'm seeing people make some crazy offers for tickets. I think I saw someone offering a classical set on vinyl for Bolter tickets. Guys, don't get shut out. Head over to discobiscuits.com/shows and pre-buy your tickets. Stop being wooks. We're all grown-ups at this point. Buy your tickets in advance. Not only does it ensure that you get to see the show, but it helps out the band with the promoters. We love sellouts. We love showing that there is this avid, fervent demand for the Disco Biscuits. This helps us get the band booked, helps the promoters know what they have in store. So it's a great way to translate your fandom and your passion for the Biscuits into something that can actually positively benefit the band. I'll tell you what I did this year, guys. After last year's debacle at the Roxy, where so many people were turned away because they didn't get their tickets in time, I bought a bunch of extra tickets to the Fonda Theater show on February 1st in Los Angeles. I'm going to give one to my neighbor. I'm going to give one to my homie who's been hearing me talk about the Biscuits for ages. I'm going to give one to a girl from Survivor who's been hearing about the Biscuits. I'm going to give one to one of the guys from work. This is what we need to do. I'm going to encourage you guys. I'm going to challenge you guys to do the same. The only way to get this cult to critical mass is if we go out and recruit new members. That's your assignment for this tour, guys. Get 2 of your friends to drop out of school or quit their jobs or get a divorce or whatever so that they can go on tour with the Biscuits. That's what you need to do. Now, you've been hearing me tout the VIP experience for the last few episodes. The benefits are myriad. Early access to the venue. You get to be there for sound check. You get a special poster. You get a laminate. You get a lanyard. And you get to be a part of that group photo with the band that is eventually going to turn into that coffee table book. If you want to go to Boulder at this point, the VIP package is your only option. And that's going to become the case for more and more shows as the tour progresses. So head over to discobiscuits.com/shows. And while you're there, make sure you find the link at the bottom of the page that says follow the Disco Biscuits. Here's what you do. You click on that, you get notified the minute new dates get announced. That way you don't get shut out of the next special show. And guys, the next special show, you do not want to miss this one. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, some words that I have been waiting to say for a very long time. I present to you the first of our exclusive 4-part Touchdowns All Day miniseries on the Disco Biscuits' new space opera, Revolution in Motion. Guys, we are once again in Barber's studio, an undisclosed location outside of Philadelphia. I am here with John Gutwillig and Joey Friedman, the songwriting team behind, what is it now? 20 new compositions, 21 new compositions in the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's 21, but one of those Nick wrote with John and Alex Mazer, and me and John have wrote, well, John, Aaron, and I, and Mark too. I mean, we've all been collaborating on some of them, but 20 if you include Friend Like Steve.
Okay, 20, including Friend Like Steve. So Joey, welcome back to Touchdowns All Day. I would like to invite you all to come with me on a little bit of a journey into the history of this partnership. In our last episode, we heard about some of the most recent work that John and Joey have done, culminating in the 3 new songs we heard over the New Year's run. Today, we're going to wind back to 2021, and we're going to take you through the steps that have brought us to the present, how this collaboration got off the ground, where the idea for a new rock opera came from, the songwriting process that produced the 14 songs that compose the rock opera. We'll also get into a little bit of the mythology behind the songs and the stories that John and Joey have been creating.
We should do that because people are assuming things and they're trying to discern it all from the lyrics. And as much as the lyrics do tell the story is larger and more detailed than we could possibly get into the lyrics of 14 songs.
Yes. So think of this and the next few episodes in this series as being the kind of accompaniment, cliff notes, commentary track, what have you, to accompany the rock opera. Hopefully this will deepen your appreciation of the story and help you to understand how this entire project came to be. I'm going to start things out in April of 2022. I hopped in Joey's car with Joey and his partner Dre to get a ride to the Mission Ballroom. And Joey said, I want to play you something, and proceeded to play for me the first demo that I heard of Plan of Attack, another Plan of Attack, one of the songs that he was working on. He explained to me that he and Barber were working on a rock opera together, and he wanted me to be one of the first people to hear some of it. And I have to acknowledge, Joey, I have to admit now, with hindsight, I realized how wrong I was. But in the moment, my first thought was, oh, this guy is crazy. There's no way Barber is going to write a song with him. And even if he did, it's going to be terrible. By the time we pulled into the lot at the Mission Ballroom, I was saying, attack, attack. And I haven't stopped for going on almost 3 years now. Joey, what in the world inspired you at this phase in your life to not only decide that you want to start writing rock songs, jam band songs, that not only a rock opera, but that you were going to work with the guy who wrote Magellan and Mindless Dribble and fill in the blanks of the rest of John's extremely impressive catalog, that you were going to become his collaborator and lyricist?
Well, first, I appreciate your confidence in me, Max. That feels good. I think if I would have thought about it, it may not have happened. There's a line in One Chance to Save the World that says, you got to believe it just came to us and you know. And I think that couldn't be more true about how this came to be. I'll take you back to August 21st, 2021. They were playing a drive-in show at Swansea, New Hampshire. And it was in the middle of COVID, and the show was over, and Dre and I went backstage, and there was a little trailer backstage, and John and Mark were in the trailer. And I said, I thought it was a really good show. It was a good show. And I said such to John, hey, man, that was a good show. And his reply to me was, yeah, it was good, and we're playing good, but we need new songs. And I just casually threw out, why don't you write another rock opera? And he kind of replied, well, I just don't have a story to write about. And in the moment, I had this idea and I just blurted it out. I said, why don't you write a story where the band is central characters in the story? And he said, well, that's a pretty good idea. And I just started my brain started running in the moment. And I thought about, they were going to play in the caverns underground in November. And then I got thinking about playing underground, and it led me to the Nokia Theater, now the Palladium Theater. And I mean, this is all happening fast in my head in seconds. And I recalled on New Year's, I know they just played at the Palladium on the 28th, but on a New Year's Eve, when you go to the Palladium or the Nokia Theater, it's like crazy. Times Square on New Year's, you had to go through police barricades, and there's people everywhere and police everywhere. And you got to show them your ticket and get to the next checkpoint. And it's craziness, it's Times Square on New Year's. But when you come up at 3 a.m., Times Square's closed for cleaning. So the Nokia Theater lets out in this desolate Times Square, and it feels like another world.
Yeah.
And I said to Jon,
especially because it's totally lit.
Yes.
It's like the light from Times Square is in every crevice of the street, and it's 3 or 4 in the morning, and you expect it to be dark, and you walk outside and it's completely swept and clean and totally lit. And it does feel like you are on another planet or something like that.
Yeah. And so I kind of blurred out, what about if the band goes underground to play a New Year's show in Times Square, and the world is one way, and when they come up, the world has forever changed? And Jon looks at me, he's like, that's a good idea. And then he says, how has it changed? And we were like, apocalypse, climate change, alien invasion. And he was like, oh yeah, alien invasion. So it wasn't like let's write a space opera. It was, let's put the band as a central character of the story. They come up, the world's different. How is the world different? Alien invasion. And we sat there for 45 minutes and we just, in improv comedy, they have this concept of yes and. And Jon and I have been doing this for years when we joke around. Like, Jon says something, completely off the wall, and you just, you take it and you add to it, right? And we create these great long jokes from it. And that's what we did. And when we walked out of the trailer, we had intergalactic ruler has a black sheep son who crashes his spaceship through a wormhole, comes to Earth, abducts the band on New Year's, takes him back to his home planet, and then they bring the music of the Disco Biscuits to their home planet. We knew that the aliens didn't have hands, and that they became obsessed with the band. We knew that the world they came from in this time, we knew that the world that they came from was electric. So they didn't have hands because they had wires coming out of their arms that conduct electricity, and they loved electronic music, but had never heard live-tronica. And so that when they captured the Biscuits and they see them playing this music that kind of sounds like electronic music, but with these hands that they're now obsessed with, they immediately decide, hey, this is how this black sheep son is going to prove his worth to his, at the time it was the king, but now it's a queen. And that all happened in 45 minutes. And I called Steve when I left, and I was like, I think Jon and I just had a moment, it'll probably not go anywhere.
Steve Martocci, founder of Splice, great friend of the band and the community.
Yeah. Jon and I's best friend. And I went home, and I just started putting a lot of thought into the story. And about 2 weeks later, I didn't talk to Jon right away, and I didn't hit him up. But 2 weeks later, I get a text from Jon, and it said, tell me more about this space opera. And I'm interested to know what he was thinking during that time period. And I just started ripping off text messages like blah, 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 blah. And he didn't respond right away. And I paused. I was like, just checking in. Is any of this resonating with you? And he's like, this is awesome.
So Jon, most of the time when you get that conversation 3 a.m. after the show, you hope that the next day no one remembers you had it, because you've probably said yes to some business plans or other things that you have no intention of following through on. But somehow this really hooked you. And a few weeks later, you go back to Joey and you are interested in hearing more. Do you remember his initial pitch? Do you remember that moment, and why this, out of all the crazy ideas that get pitched to you backstage, is the one that stuck?
Well, the situation for me was I did not want to write a pandemic song. I wrote an album of I Just Had a Baby, Isn't He So Cute? I didn't want to put that out. I didn't want to put that on stage. It's just too personal, and I just don't think that that style of music would fly for the Disco Biscuits. And so I'm sitting in my studio during the pandemic, and I'm just like going through all the loops that I have. And I just can't believe how many of them there are that are just pure fire, that are just going to be great. I mean, there's just so much. And so I think what I said to Joey when we had the original conversation was I probably said something along the lines of, I have more music than I've ever had in my entire life, and I don't really have anything to say over the top of it that is going to get me motivated to write enough lyrics to have all these songs have lyrics. You know, maybe I'll get one song or another one, but I have, hard drives filled with loops right now, and they're all good enough to make it to stage. And so we were putting things to stage that were like instrumentals. I think at that same New Hampshire show, we played an instrumental song that I have some lyrics to. I think it's called Funk Ditty. And then we were bringing stuff to stage, but they were instrumentals and they weren't fleshed out songs. And I needed to get into the process. And I solved this problem with the hot air balloon. And I think we discussed that. And I was like, it's the same problem. But when Joey told me they don't have hands, when we were riffing on the story, and we were just like having fun. Like, I didn't even think anything of it. We were just having a good laugh. Like, it seemed like, this was a fun thing to talk about after the show. Nobody ever wants to talk about songwriting. Everybody wants to talk about weed or t-shirts or the security, like all things that I really have no interest in. Like, the security doesn't mess with me. I eat gummies. I don't smoke weed. And I don't generally fit into the t-shirts because they're usually too small for me. So it's just like one of those things where finally somebody was sitting backstage talking about music with me. And I was like excited to have that conversation. Mind you, it was a pandemic. So it wasn't like I was having people over to the studio during the week. I wasn't. So, and I was spending a lot of time trying to get live stream the band during the pandemic. So I wasn't having the kind of musical conversations I was looking forward to. And when Joey said the thing, they don't have hands, then it was like, oh, now these are unique, interesting alien creatures that need to have a world. They need to exist because that's an interesting view. Like, in my point of view, you think about evolution and you think about how many Earth-like spherical objects there are in the universe or the universes, and you think, is there another intelligent life out there? I think the chance, like everybody thinks they're exact copies of humans. I think the chance that they end up to be humans, pretty small. I mean, if the dinosaurs didn't go extinct, Earth would be filled with dinosaurs right now. There would never be a human. And I just thought it was interesting that he had basically evolved this creature that never had hands. When a hand, the opposable thumb, and the ability to grasp things is what makes a human a human. Like, without the opposable thumb, a lot of people think you don't get humans at all. And so I just thought it was interesting that the one human characteristic that's so important to us was missing from this depiction of these aliens. And yet they're more highly advanced than us. They can come to our planet. They can freeze our cities. They can, be this greater technological species, and yet at the same time they can find something beautiful and amazing in seeing humans. And that's always been my big problem with alien takeover stories, is that the aliens don't seem to ever care about humans or like humans at all. And I feel like in this sense, they had a real reason to root for the humans and enjoy the humans. And so when Joey was like this, and it was like a spitball, and they don't have hands. It was like such just a random solution to what he was seeing as the coming problem in the story, is that why would they like the band, And that to me is what sold it to me. And then I went home and I listened to a bunch of the songs, and I realized that this was a really good opportunity for me to get. I had a lot of alien sounding loops, and I was like, I could probably do this opera without even having to write anything new, which is never the case and wasn't the case. But I felt like I had enough to just do it straight up. And so that's when I texted him and was like, let's do it, because I could feel the the like, I don't know what the word is for it. I could feel the like story, like kind of being mixed up and stirred and everything. I could just feel it kind of happening.
Jon, it's well known that you love science and technology and outer space, aliens, intergalactic travel. Those themes are all over the music you write. Are either of you sci-fi fans, novels, movies? Were there any things that inspired you in the process of coming up with this mythology?
Not for me.
Not for me, no.
I'm actually not typically a huge sci-fi fan. I think that generally I don't like it when worlds are created and there are just no rules to the worlds and people can do whatever they want, however they want. The story to me was less about space and more about the characters, right? This concept of I always liken the captain of the spaceship to Billy Madison, right? And so that more than anything inspired me, right? He's got this mom who's a queen of this planet. There's a lot of pressure on this person to take over and prove his worth, but he spent his whole life being enabled and he's kind of a fuck up. And so this concept of like him coming to Earth and capturing the Disco Biscuits is like Billy Madison going and doing all of the grades in 2 weeks of grade for me. So there's a concept of a relationship between parent, a struggling relationship between generations and the pressure that comes with that. For me, also with the Disco Biscuits being the central characters in the story, what makes the Disco Biscuits beautiful is that they play electronic music with instruments, right? And so this concept of these aliens come from an electric world. They have evolved to conduct electricity, and so they don't need hands. But I like the concept of you want what you don't have.
Yes.
So when they discover Earth and they learn about everything on Earth and their spaceship and they see hands and instruments, to them, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing to us. And so it was less about the sci-fi aspect of it and more about the characters in it and what motivated them. And there's a lot of parallels between the aliens and the Biscuits, right? Like tons of potential, but ultimately maybe not full. We had a joke that the Disco Biscuits are a band with so much potential they have to go to outer space to fully reach it,
That's what I thought the tagline of the story was going to be. That's funny.
and so, generally speaking, and we'll get into this, but the theme of this thing is really, another plan of attack, right? Your life is going one way. For the aliens, they're supposed to be out there doing this job and they're just really fucking around in space and making bad decisions. But then they go through a wormhole unexpectedly and they're presented with this opportunity and they lean into that opportunity. And finally they discover the Disco Biscuits and bring them to space. And then there's the parallel for the Biscuits. They're going along and they've been kind of doing this thing, but maybe stagnating slightly. And the aliens come and they end up going with these aliens and becoming the biggest band in space. And then in real life, right, the parallel is, they're kind of doing their thing. They hadn't written a lot of new songs for a while. And then their friend, who hasn't ever written a song before, has this idea. And rather than saying that's stupid, right, really leaning into it. And now we've written all these songs together and the band is so rejuvenated and the fans are rejuvenated. We're all having so much fun together. And so that's sort of the overarching theme. And it's less about the fact that they come from space, but that's just kind of the story.
So it's a science fiction story, but it's very much grounded in recognizable, relatable human emotions and conditions. And, we'll get into this as we go through the 14 songs on a track by track basis. But as Joey mentioned, there's themes of your relationships with your parents, of unmet potential, of the crushing burden of expectations, the allure of getting high with your friends and going on tour. I mean, what is what are the aliens doing in Shocked other than basically going on their version of Biscuits tour?
That's exactly right.
So there are many layers of metaphors. And like I said, we'll get into all of these. I'm going to keep winding the clock back, however, taking us further and further away. I want to say that, Joey, you have a long history with the band. Jon, you have a long history with some of this material. People have been noticing or speculating about a new rock opera in the works since at least 2012. I found a thread on Fantasy Tour where someone said, anyone hear this rumor about Barber having a new rock opera called Space Taxi or something? In as early as 2012, people were starting to talk about that. We heard, I think, the first earliest drafts of one of these space opera songs played in a side project called Kick Rocks. We'll hear a little bit of that later in the episode. But I'm going to wind back and ask you, Jon, was there any truth to this rumor that you had it in your mind to come up with a space opera, something called Space Taxi or something like that? And if so, do you recall what your original vision for that project might have been?
Well, I had this thought that the whoever can make FedEx in outer space is going to be really, really wealthy. That it just seemed like even more than on Earth, you really need a good FedEx to make outer space work, And then I was kind of writing music when I had that thought, and I came up with the Space Taxi riff, which is the dun 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 dun, which is the One Chance to Save the World riff. And I kind of made this weird song where like the riff goes on, like I'm picturing the taxi flying through space, and then it stops and it like drops off a package. And there's like this bing bong bing thing that happens when it drops off the package.
When it's backing up so that it doesn't bang into another space shuttle.
Yeah, it was just like, it was so not dancey, but the riff was fire. And then I actually taught that to the band of Kick Rocks. And they played it pretty faithfully, even though it was, ridiculously silly. And I just wanted the song, and I recognized after a while that after I heard Kick Rocks play, we played it on a boat cruise in New York, and then I went back to listen to the tape, and I was like, this is absurd. But I couldn't shake the idea of some of that stuff. And so I just kind of put it away. I wasn't in a position with the Biscuits where I thought that we could work it into something different. And I knew that it had to go somewhere different. But the riff was obviously the most unique and coolest thing. And then, it went into my folder of loops that could be written over. I have this constant folders of, loops that are melodic, loops that are funky, loops that are this and that. And, I think the big reason for this space opera was, hey, let's put some of this stuff to the test. And it was really up to Joey to pick which ones were fire. I'll play loops that I think are good, but I don't like to be the one who chooses the loop that we work over necessarily, because it just seems like, there's no validation in that. So it's interesting that Joey chose that one, because he thought it was really cool. I know there's a bunch of fans that really like that one, that were psyched about the original Kick Rock song and stuff like that.
Joey, talk a little bit about your history with the band, because, a lot of people know you from bumping into you at the shows, being up front, dancing alongside you. You're not just a collaborator. You're also a longtime fan. You've worked for the band in various capacities. You're involved in everything from song composition now to working with Mark on set lists. So I want to talk a little bit about, where you first discovered the Disco Biscuits and the role they've played in your life.
Yeah, well, to start, it started in 1998. I was a junior in high school, and I didn't see the Biscuits, but I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and the band had played a free show at Franklin and Marshall College, which I did not go to. But a friend of mine named Joe Dana, who I've lost touch with, I'm not exactly sure where he is, he was out and about taking pictures, and he stumbled across the show. And so it was 1998, free show at F&M, and somebody handed him a cassette tape. And I'm pretty sure the cassette tape had like Jamelia on it and maybe Little Betty Boop. And I don't even remember what else was on it. Somebody actually recently posted a picture of this cassette tape on Biscuits Family or something like that. And he comes into art class during the week and he played it for me. And I think he played me Jamelia, and I was, a teenager kid, and I resonated with the lyrics. And that was it. I kind of forgot about them. And then when I was a freshman in college, it was the summer at Penn State, summer of 2000, I saw the Disco Biscuits on the awning at the Crowbar. And I remembered them from when I got played this tape, and I went to the show. What I didn't know was that they played the whole show with Jordan Chrisman on bass. And and I had a blast, had a great time. During the encore, Jon comes out and he says something along the lines of, "Hey, it's been a long 6 months."
Well, it's been a really tough 6 months, and we'd like to thank all you guys for sticking with us through all those days. We would like to thank Jordan here for being the greatest guy humanly on the planet. And we decided very recently that we just wouldn't be the Disco Biscuits without one Mr. Mark Brown.
And I go to the guy next to me. I go, "Man, what's going on?" And the guy's like, "He's back. He's back." I was like, "Who's back?" He's like, "Brownie's back." I go, "Who's Brownie?" It's like, "He's the bass player in the Biscuits, man." I was like, "Well, then who's that guy?" He's like, "That's not the guy. That's the other guy. The real guy's Brownie." And I remember looking around, and I kind of like pretended like I knew what was going on. I was like, "He's back. It's about time. Yeah." And that was my first show. And I was in college, I was doing the college thing. So I only saw a handful of shows, but I also met Little Man at Penn State, who was a big Biscuits fan. And I met a couple other big Biscuits fan who kind of indoctrinated me. And then it was the Tussey Mountain shows in summer '02. That's when I quote unquote got it. And then I was hooked and I started listening to all the shows. I went abroad in spring '03 and I had a whole CD book full of Biscuit shows. That's when I learned all the songs. So I only saw about, I think, 3 shows between 2000 and summer '02. And then I caught the bug and I started going to as many shows as I could.
That's great. What a historic first show for you to be at. And what a great memory of seeing that jubilation with Mark coming back to the band, getting to experience that as your introduction to the live Biscuits experience.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then I moved to Philly after I graduated from Penn State, and I met Berkowitz and Magner, was dating a girl, a good friend of mine who I went to college with. And, the Philly at that time, the band would be hanging out and we played poker together, and I met Jon playing poker. And it just kind of built from there, and we kind of became friends. And then, I worked for the band for a little bit as an accountant. And then, life happens, and we actually took a little bit of a break from each other for a little while there in the late 2000, I guess 2012 timeframe. And then we came back together. And we kind of picked up where we left off, and we were all really close, but not on a creative level, really. And then this just kind of happened from there. So I feel like we've kind of been through it all together, good and bad. And I think we all really know each other deeply at this point. And I think all of those experiences sort of led us to where we are now. And it's all love, and it's fun. And, the writing these songs with these guys have been some of the best moments of my life.
That's great. Jon, talk a little bit about your approach to working with others in the songwriting process. You've collaborated here and there before Joey with other people, most notably with our friend Kevin Abrams on Basis for a Day.
That's right.
But typically you were a one-man show. You brought the songs to the band. Mark and Aaron and Sammy wrote as well, then Alan. But this idea of you working with a collaborator, had you written with other people previously? Did you have any feelings one way or the other about if it worked for you?
Yeah, for sure. A always had an idea that to be a composer, you had to like walk around a field in the middle of the night, singing the song over and over again. And that used to work for me. But there's actually been quite a few collaborators in my career, and a lot of them are very sort of unsung, like Kevin Abrams and Nasser, and, just people who were, basically hanging out, having fun. And I was writing while we were doing that. Like Nasser and I were we lived in the same building in Philadelphia, and there was a second floor, like little library chill out room. And I set up a computer studio in there and was making music, and Nasser hung out and smoked joints the whole time while I did that. And, that's where do-do-do-do-do-do-do of Above the Waves came from. Yeah. And a lot of those like classic moments of like classically music written in that era. And I'm realizing that Nasser was in the room for all of that. And so who knows what effect he was having on the writing, because he wasn't a writer and didn't know anything about music, but he was in the room. And so there's something about not being alone when you're writing, because when you're writing music or poetry or whatever, it can be a very lonely job. And so I've always typically collaborated with people who are not musicians. And then I went to LA and tried collaborating with musicians and didn't enjoy the process at all. I just found the LA musicians to be a little bit jaded on how fun the job is. They don't seem to like the job. They don't seem to want to do it unless they're getting paid. They don't seem to think that the music that you're making is going to be a hit. They don't think that their role in the music business is like cool enough for what I heard it all in the couple of years that I tried to write in LA. I couldn't find I collaborated a little bit with Eric Zane, who's literally one of the most talented people I've ever sat in a studio with. But that was like pay for play type of stuff. And I didn't have enough money to do that indefinitely. And so I tried it, but I just was never able to get anything cooking. However, when I work with people who aren't musicians like Lancer or Joey or Nasser or even Kevin Abrams, I seem to get great results. And so it's like, I think I just need to hang with somebody because I'll get the job done if I do. And if I'm in there alone, I will figure out a reason to not do the job. I will get busy doing something else. I'll get distracted. I'll, end up on Instagram or something like that. And then I won't get any work done. So it does, for me, really helps.
Joey, you mentioned you get that text a few weeks later and the yes anding begins. I know that after that, you start in on your first draft of your first song, roughly September 2021. Talk a little bit about where you started. Blank page in front of you. How do you begin?
Well, I started thinking about the story. I was thinking about the story nonstop, right? Who these characters are, what they're about, what they're thinking about, really trying to, create this world. And that's all I was, it was pretty much controlling my thoughts. And I was in the car and I was thinking about this character. And I was trying to get the captain, right? The Billy Madison type. I was trying to get into his head and what would he be thinking about? John, can I tell the Paul Abdul story? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was in the car.
When is it not okay to tell a Paul Abdul story?
So I was in the car and I was thinking about this character and I was thinking, what would he be thinking? He'd be thinking that he's probably a victim of his circumstances because he's like kind of entitled. He'd be thinking that he's always taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And then it just
opposite the track.
Yeah, in my head, the only time I've ever really thought about that phrase was this Paul Abdul song, Opposite the Track. And so I'm just driving and I go 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. We'll never get you where you want to go. You need another plan of attack. Your ship is ready and your crew has your back. We're going to get you where you want to go. We need another plan of attack. Attack, 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 attack. We're going to get you where you want to go. We need another plan of attack. And I was like, holy shit, I think that's good. And I pulled over and I kind of recorded it so I didn't forget it. And obviously we changed it to Tripping Through Wormholes just to get things on track. But generally speaking, that's the first thing I ever wrote. And I built a song around it, in my head, around a melody in my head, of which a lot of it didn't make it, but a lot of the lyrics, especially in the second verse and in the bridges, never had a chance to give them what they're looking for. Can you hear them now in the groups they sing your praise? That all came from that first version. And we were at the Mirage in 2021, September 21, and Jon was in a conversation. I kind of was standing around waiting for him to finish the conversation, and I pulled him into a corner, and I sing this song to him with no music. And by the end of the attacks, he was kind of fist pumping and singing with me, attack, attack, attack. And he was, at the end of it, he's like, we're going to write a rock opera together. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And so we had like a Zoom planning session. At that point, I had like a couple song titles, or at least I had the narrative beats of the story. And Jon played me a couple things, but then it was really Thanksgiving of 21 where I came here for the first time. And Jon had he had these files full of loops, and we started listening to these loops, and the ones that I felt resonated with me, I kind of started, that would be good for this part of the story, and that would be good for this. So he played the Plan of Attack loop, and I started singing what I had written over that loop. And it's different than what it was, but he played me the Space Taxi loop, which I had no idea about those rumors of a space opera. I had no idea he even played that song with Kick Rocks until later. He played it, and I was like, this sounds like the kind of music aliens would like. Yeah. And we freestyled. I'm sure Jon has the voice of One Chance to Save the World over that melody. The loop for Shock came from that session. The loop for Taurus came from that session. Oh, there was a moment in Syracuse in 2019 where we were backstage goofing around, and Jon was singing, "Do You Want to Step on the Rocket Ship?" And we were just joking around, and there was no point to it at all. And I even like riffed on it a little bit. But when we came back to 2021, I was like, dude, we have a spot for your Rocket Ship song from Syracuse. He's like, amazing. Because there's going to be a part where the aliens are going to capture these humans, and they're going to rhetorically sing, "Do you want to step on the rocket ship?" So we brought that in. And so we picked, I think, the loops that got us through the first couple of songs. We also thought of the fuzzies, which ended up becoming a huge breakthrough for a lot of reasons in the story. Do we want to talk about the fuzzies now?
Hold on. When the first thing we did, which I thought was the most fun, was we pulled up a music sequencing software, and we put blank location markers in for what we thought all the songs would be. And then we went through the loops and grabbed loops and filled out what the rock opera would be. And we basically got all the way through it, where I probably have that file somewhere where it's like, there's the loop for the songs. Things got rearranged a little bit, but basically you had all the song stops along the way kind of mapped out. And I had all the music, and we matched the music to the tent poles of the opera. And at the end of it, we had a giant Ableton file with loop after loop after loop after loop, and you could feel how the thing was going to move. And I think we used almost all of the loops in there, except for one I know we didn't use, but the rest of them I'm pretty sure we used. And it basically, we sketched out the whole opera in one day, because I came in with a bunch of music and you came in with a good idea of how the story flowed. And it gave us this ability that by the time you left that couple days in the studio, I was looking at the file being like, well, I can kind of even listen to this, like I could like sing a little bit of each section, and then, hey, this is kind of real at this point.
And what I always loved was, after that session, your confidence in that this was going to work. I mean, in your mind, it was already done. Like we talked to Aaron backstage after the Montclair Thanksgiving shows, and we told him the whole story. And John's like, it's done, basically. We got it. And John leaves the room, and Aaron's like, did you actually write any songs yet? I was like, no. He's like, okay. but we talk about parallels. There's a parallel in the story, and we'll talk more about this, but in Shocked, it's sung by the captain, and he's been doing fuzzies and getting shocked, and he's kind of lost, right? He doesn't have a purpose. And then in Freeze, he's been clear-headed. He hasn't been doing shocks, and he's now got a purpose, and he's very confident that he's got a plan for the future. And it's not all that different than the way John was in the trailer. John, had these songs, but he didn't know what to do with them. He was kind of struggling to find a voice for these songs. But by the time we got through the wormhole or through that planning session on Thanksgiving of 21, it was like the light bulb had clicked. He was like, I've got what I need to get where I want to go. And from that point on, there was never a doubt that we were going to get this thing done. And it was kind of amazing to me because I still had doubts that we would maybe get it done, but he was completely confident that this was going to happen.
That's great.
Yeah, because in my mind, the loop is the inspiration. The loop, and that's why I'm always like, if you're going to sing a song, even if you're jamming over Paula Abdul in your head, you got to record it because that's the inspiration. The rest is just perspiration. You can do the perspiration any day of the week. It's the inspiration that has to join you when it decides it's willing to join you. And I knew we had enough inspiration to get through the entire story. So the question was at that point, how do we just get the perspiration done? And that's why I was so confident, because I was like, this is just a matter of execution at this point.
So there's one more milestone along the way before we're going to dive into the tracks. And that is your first official collaboration, song Friend Like Steve.
Yeah, and I mean, it still may be the best song we've ever written, despite what anybody may think. But around the same time that in November, when we had the planning session, Steve had this blowout birthday party, and he had booked the Biscuits to play it. And Steve's this extremely exceptional human being. He's created companies, and he's funny, and he's amazing, and he's got everything you could really want. And it's hard to get somebody like that a gift for their birthday. And I sort of had this idea that I could write him a song. And there's a history of us writing some. Magna wrote a song for Berkowitz for his wedding, and there have been sort of other songs like that in the past. And so I came up with the idea of I honestly, there's a voice memo of me singing the first version of Friends Like Steve, and I'm like whistling along with the melody in my head. And I pitched it to Aaron and John, and they were like, this is a great idea. And so we spent we really didn't work on the rock opera very much between Thanksgiving and March. What we did was we were working on Friend Like Steve. We picked a melody for it. I created a first draft of the lyrics, and then John started adding his spin to it, and we didn't even do it together. It was all over text message and the phone. But we had this idea that we were not going to tell Steve about it, and we were going to let everybody, there were about 400 people at the party. I think only about 100 of them had seen the Disco Biscuits before. So the concept was we were going to teach the whole party the song, and the only person at the party that didn't know about the song was Steve. And we were all going to show up at a certain spot at a certain time and sing this song to him with the band. And I mean, we went all the way up to the wire, but we knew we had a great song, and everything was executed to perfection. I mean, just the guy was completely blown away. Everybody was in a circle around him singing it. And I remember, John and I had this moment when it was done. We kind of just looked at each other, like he was still on stage, and I remember he just looked at me and goes, "We did it," and I was like, "We did it," and it was like that sort of set the tone. We had successfully executed a plan together, and wrote a song together at the same time, and that kind of, I think, and we started writing the rock opera like 2 weeks later.
A proof of a successful concept, your ability to collaborate and execute and to deliver on a pretty tight timeline. Well, that brings us to the first song of the opera, the first song that I heard.
Look at Max, though, dude. Look at Max, nailing it home. That's the main point, though, is that the birthday was a specific day. There was a timeline where the diva machinations of an artist or an artistic troupe had to be tossed in the garbage.
Yes.
So that a moment like he's talking about could get created.
A deadline is a amazing taskmaster.
Yeah. And it's really, that was a time where I could feel the diva machinations coming in and out of the writing process. And I love the fact that we got it done. Yeah, it's interesting that you point that out.
So, plan of attack. Joey, you played me that first demo in April. I think it was on April 9th. On our way to the mission.
Yep.
And like I said, I couldn't get the chorus out of my head after that. Talk to us a little bit about how you took it from that little nugget inspired by MC Scat Cat and Paula Abdul and translated that not only into a song, but a song that establishes a lot of the mythology and really sets the stage. Not the first song in the rock opera, but we're going to talk about it first. The chapter that we are covering in this particular episode includes Shocked, Plan of Attack.
Yeah, it's Shocked, Wormhole, Twisted in the Road, Plan of Attack. That's the order of the first 4 songs.
Sorry, I have it twisted around in my notes.
It was that way, though. The way that it was Shocked, another Plan of Attack, and then we changed it.
Okay. So
no, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
No. Well, we didn't know Shocked was going to be the first song until you came up with Rolling Through Outer Space with my brothers. And then we realized that Shocked was the first song, but we knew they had to go through the wormhole in order for Plan of Attack to happen. And they had to go through the wormhole in order for Twisted in the Road to happen. So it was always the wormhole, Twisted in the Road, Plan of Attack. But then we wrote Shocked. And when John said Rolling Through Outer Space with my brothers, I was like, that needs to be the first line of the rock opera. And we made Shocked first. But we didn't write the songs in order. We wrote, the first weekend of writing was Plan of Attack, One Chance to Save the World, and then Twisted in the Road. But Plan of Attack was first because that was where we had the most fleshed out song. And we already knew the loop because John had played me the loop, and we kind of freestyled the attack. We need another Plan of Attack over it. So when we met to write, we started there, and he just started working in Ableton. And again, when he works in Ableton, the music is looping. And the first weekend it was just us. Magner joined us for every session following, but this weekend was just him and I. And I just started going through my lyrics that I had and figuring out which ones were good. And I think I wrote the chorus stayed virtually the same with the exception of tripping through wormholes just to get things on track. And then we wrote the second verse first. Can you hear them now? In the streets they group and sing your praises. You became exactly what they were always hoping for. On this night of dance, the people drink in jubilation. We strike first and hit them when they're at their most vulnerable. And really it was like, we knew that this song was like the first big turning point, right? Like up until this song, they were messing around, they were crashing through wormholes. And this song is sort of when they pitched the first mate of the ship. The captain's in a coma because he's plugged into the ship, his circuits get fried, and he wakes up from his coma. And by this point, his crew have learned all about Earth. They've learned about the hands, they've learned about the people, they've learned about all the people in New York City on New Year's Eve. And they're basically pitching to the captain, hey, this is our chance. Let's stop getting high and let's do our job, which is to go out and find foreign life. And that the lyrics in that second verse are basically like, can you hear them now at home? you've reached, they're so proud of you for finally doing what you're supposed to do. And the people on Earth are going to be drunk celebrating on New York City. So let's go get them now. And what also came out of that first session, Jon just kind of freestyled, this marble, she's so blue. And the second he said that, I had other lyrics that were the legacy that's escaped you. We finally had the chance to get them. So he kind of sang that line out of nowhere over a whole new melody. And then immediately it allowed me to bring in these lyrics that I had. So we left that session with the second verse, the chorus, and the first bridge. And we didn't have a second bridge or a first verse or an ending. That would come later. And Alex Mazer helped me with the first verse. But that's kind of that first day where we had a structure with a verse, a bridge, and a chorus, and confidence. We were really excited after that first day because we had just, we really could just see that we were starting to, I think we were both starting to really feel the story in our bones at that point. And this was our first successful demo. And so yeah, but that song is really about, they went through this wormhole. They learn about this new planet, and they decide that they are going to lean into this opportunity and change the way that they're going about their lives to hopefully reach their full potential.
So I've got an early draft of the lyrics up in front of me. And from the get-go, the major themes of the entire narrative are present. Some things that are present that aren't in the final version. 3042, not a lot to show for it. Ask yourself, is it a legacy you're yearning for, a father's love? Now, Joey, it would be unnatural for me as someone who, for a profession my entire life has interpreted art as a film studies professor and a writer and a critic, to not look at lyrics like these and wonder, is there any element of autobiography in this piece? Is there any element of taking themes from your own life and experience and bringing them to the characters and to the page?
Not really. I was really trying to embody the character. I had a pretty good childhood. I mean, I think there was maybe pressure on me to succeed, but I really was trying to not put myself in the story. I was really trying to make it about the Biscuits and these aliens. And I was really I have always been good at putting myself in the shoes of other people. And I think it's why I'm able to get along so well with the Biscuits, and I've been chief of staff for a company. I'm good at sort of like putting myself in that perspective. And so I was really thinking of that. Now, when I first wrote that song, my idea was that they were like really old and they hadn't done anything yet. That kind of went by the wayside. But originally, the intergalactic ruler was a king. And it wasn't until Jon actually, I don't think he was thinking about it when he wrote it, but when we wrote the chorus of One Chance to Save the World, he wrote the verse, or the chorus, you got the moves in whatever direction, you got to believe it just came to us, and And when he said, you got the moves in whatever direction, I was like, and we knew they were singing that song to the ruler. I was like, the queen on the chessboard can move in any direction. And so that line, if she's a queen, becomes way better. And I also wanted a woman in the story, right? I didn't know how to, the aliens, we try not to get into sex or race or any of that too much. But I thought it was important to represent, a little bit of femininity in the story. So the idea that the intergalactic ruler was a queen came sort of as a byproduct of this line that he wrote. And that happened a lot throughout the story. We would write something, and then what we wrote would inspire a whole new element of the narrative.
Jon, I know you've got up an early draft, one of the first that I've heard, and there are some, I think, interesting differences in the composition. Maybe you could play for us a little bit of that early demo of Plan of Attack.
Of course. Right into it.
I haven't listened to this in a while. It's fire.
It is.
Yeah, so this is straight techno orchestra type of demo.
with a full chorus.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a first verse at this point.
Yeah, so this one is just, you know, it's just really, in my mind, it's just some generic techno, you know? It's we're just writing over some stuff that like kind of some basic techno-y stuff, but at the time I was all right, so this is over different changes than we do it.
And that was really, you had a moment where you're like, I just want to sing. You like had a feeling, right? And like that happened a lot throughout this process. And that's what you really brought. I mean, you obviously brought a lot more than that, but you would have these moments where you're just like, I just feel like we should do this. And you would sing something and would end up becoming this beautiful thing.
Yeah, but my thing was they're looking at Earth through some kind of viewport and it's just a big blue marble. And they're just like looking at it like, how cool is this thing we found? It's got water and there's people. Like, imagine if you saw a planet in a spaceship. Before you go down there, you would look through the viewport and like call it something simple and dumb and childlike, like a little blue marble. You know, you would have your childlike wonder of what it is. And so that's kind of why I thought that was going to be a good lyric. And that's literally in... You know, we have like a little bit of the hook here and we have that.
Yep. And I mean, you know, when he said that, I was, you know, I had the line in the original song, The Legacy That's Escaped You. So it went perfect with it. And it is his legacy. Oh, right. We had the alien chant ending on this originally.
Oh, we took that out.
What's the Leonardo DiCaprio movie that we were...
I forgot about the alien chant. Oh, when he hit your chest?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what we were thinking. We were both stomping our chest with our fist when we were doing that in the studio.
Whoa. I don't know why we left that part out. All right, so this is called version 2. So here we have the melody is that... Listen, that do.
Yeah.
So that melody...
That's when we brought Magner in.
Well, that do 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 do. That's the chest stomping thing, right? It's
That's what I was calling the steel drum.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's just. I think I just played that on the little keyboard. It's definitely the kind of line that I would play because it doesn't follow the changes, you know. All right, it's got a little flow. This version's got a little bit more flow. A little faster.
This still isn't the original lyric.
Yeah.
Love that fifth line.
I know. It's not in the song anymore.
We should bring that line back.
And then we added those changes there.
the origin of the new first verse? The "Can You Hear Me Now"?
So we had finished. We had come up with an ending of the song that we talk about these magical moments, and one of them was when Magner. I had been thinking about how to end the song over, a lot over several months. And Magner, we were in here, and Magner started playing the major changes over the piano, and I like, if you'll notice in a bunch of the songs that I do this, but I like, figuring out what the best things you said in the song were and sort of repackaging at the end.
Yes.
And so that's essentially what the end of Plan of Attack is. It's taking the chorus, but we take out the "Gonna Get You Where You Want to Go's," and then we have this really triumphant moment where we say "Gonna Get You Where You Want to Go," which I thought was. I remember when we sang it the first time, and I had chills, and I think everybody had chills. Like, what better thing to sing to a crowd on stage than "We're gonna get you where you want to go"? And it's the crew singing to the captain, trust in us. We're gonna get you where you want to go if you just do this with us. So we had the whole song, but the first verse. And a good friend of ours, and we were in New Orleans. The band played in New Orleans before in May of 22. And and Alex Mazer was there, who's a good friend of ours, and he's a poetic guy, and he's worked on some stuff with Jon before, and I told him about it. And when I got back, he wanted to hear more about it, so we had a call, and I kind of told him the story, and I said, hey, I'm really struggling with the first verse of Plan of Attack. And I kind of explained to him what was going on, that the captain was, he had been in a coma from going through this wormhole and being plugged into the spaceship, and his circuits were fried, and basically he has to be told sort of what's happened by his crew. And Alex wrote up some lyrics, and for the most part that verse is all, I made some slight tweaks to it, but he really helped me say what I was thinking. And really, what I thought he wrote was beautiful. And once he did that, I felt really good about the song, and really helped us complete the song.
That's great.
This is the first ending. This is the real ending, I think.
Yeah, this is obviously after a session with Aaron, because you can hear like a lot of the keyboards changing and all the chords changing.
Yeah, and Aaron really helped us with this part.
Yeah, and you can hear like the B flat is now this primary part. That melody, that kind of like whistle synth in the background is a line that Aaron played.
I actually kind of remember this was one of those things where I was really sold on the "We're gonna get you where you want to go's," and Jon was busy doing other stuff, and it was kind of the end of the day, and I was like, Jon, you gotta sing the "We're gonna get you where you want to go's," and he was like, fine, all right, and then he did it, and then he was like, oh man, that's fire.
Yeah, because I don't necessarily sometimes I'm doing stuff when they come up with the good part, and I don't know why it's good or what exactly is coming out of their face right now, because I've been deep in the sometimes I'm putting compressors on cymbals and stuff, and I'm listening to tiny little things, and so sometimes it's hard to come up for air, and you just got to trust the process that everybody is trying to make the best song possible. And this song for me is all trust the process, because I've written a lot of songs in my life, and yelling attack over and over and over again, and let's get them when they're vulnerable. These are lyrics that, when you've written hundreds of songs, those are lyrics you don't screw around with these words. You don't make songs like this. But Joey, in writing one of his first songs, was just all in on that. And so my role as, my role is not to old man a good idea out of the room. You know what I mean? Not to be well, I've done this and blah, 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 blah.
You have to yes and.
And I was really talking to the music gods during this song. I was like, could you have chosen a set of lyrics that is like more opposite for us to make the first song of this? Like, could you have given a different song to him? Like, why are we doing this exact set of lyrics?
At least it wasn't freeze, get your hands up.
Yeah, there's been a couple of moments. But I mean, in all of those moments, I don't really let those kind of things out into the session because I don't want to spoil the session. And it ends up that, like, if you have those kind of thoughts, that's your own stuff that you're putting on to something, you know, and like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that.
And I've gotten a lot better at my timing with Jon, you know, like from the first song till now, like I know when to not pitch a new idea to him, you know, when he's busy and he's focused, you know, I'm not tapping him on the shoulder. Hey, Jon, you know, like I was maybe in the beginning. But also, we knew when we sent these songs to Aaron and Mark, they both responded so positively to them, like right off the bat, with like, "I love this," and so that gave us a lot of early confidence. So yeah, so it was the fourth song in the rock opera. The first song we wrote, we finished it over the course of a couple sessions. Some songs came to us in one day and were basically done. This one took us a couple days to flesh out. But I love it.
Jon, did you know what you had on your hands when it was done? Because Plan of Attack, out of all of the songs in the rock opera, it's the song that's been played the second most, 30 times, only second to Twisted. It was the second song to get the inverted treatment, as far as I know. It has been a set piece. It has become a heavy hitter within the rotation. Was it apparent to you when you were working on it or shortly thereafter that this would be a big Disco Biscuits song?
No. Not until we played it live in front of, I think maybe a show that you were at. We played, I believe, this song in California in the field at High Sierra Music Festival.
That was about a month or two after you debuted it.
Yeah. At the debut, I felt pretty good about it, but we hadn't debuted a song in so long that I was just like happy to have a debut under my belt. And I thought it was cool. I thought the song was fun to play. It was very hard. There's a lot of changes. I was very uncomfortable with them. There's some fourth chords in there, which I still don't really know how to play. I just kind of play two notes and move on, and I have to sing all that stuff. And the song was a difficult song for me because I had a bad process for learning my own songs at this time. And this was the song that illuminated that to me, which is like, your system of learning your own stuff is subpar.
Is this your annotations where you would write these kind of cryptic notes to yourself describing what part came next?
Yeah.
I've seen those. They were completely nonsense.
What was your note for One Chance to Save the World? It was the, you had some crazy notes for One Chance to Save the World. Like the Dre, it was like a Dre.
Oh yeah, we thought that one keyboard sample sounded like it was from a Dr. Dre song, like a hip hop song. Yeah, for sure.
So you'd essentially have a piece of like paper with Sharpie on it, and it would be like Dr. Dre part into breakdown into verse 1.
That's right.
Yeah, and it was all because during the pandemic we couldn't rehearse, so we would be walking out on stage playing these songs without any real rehearsal. And then I realized that my job, having to remember the lyrics, the guitar part, cueing the band, listening to everybody else so I can give them all feedback about how their performance is going, and also pulling it off in front of the crowd, my procedure was subpar. And the one thing I did do correct for this song is let the song come into existence without saying we can't say attack over and over again or any of these other things that when I saw the fans didn't care at all, on version 2 or 3 live where I'm playing the song saying attack to these fans, and everybody's like, I love this. And at that point I realized I did the one thing correct with this song that you have to do when you're writing, which is don't kill the session, just let the song live, let the thing be what it's going to be. And just accept it. And that's, I think, what I did right on this session. And then I actually had to sit down here and put the song on repeat with my guitar and a microphone and just sing it and play it. Oh, like I must have done it. There's one day I think I did it 60 times in a row before I took a break. And that's the only way to get the lyrics into your head. And it's the only way to learn this stuff. And that's kind of changed my whole process. And now my whole process has changed for every single song. So this has been a good song on a lot of levels for me.
Let's go back to the first song chronologically in the opera, that being Shocked, the song that establishes the entire setting, the characters, really lays out a lot of the mythology as well. I find Shocked to be really interesting, and it has evolved into quite an amazing set piece. The last few versions of Shocked have dominated the sets that they're a part of. Shocked is interesting to me for one reason, and that is because it contains some of the most simple and on-the-nose lyrics in the entire rock opera, but also some of the most abstract and complex and poetic. It both is exposition and it's very imagistic. So you have the very on-the-nose metaphor of rolling through outer space with my brothers and getting shocked. And then you have cracks in the windshield, spider every which way. They seem to start nowhere, then they shatter the pane. The pressure too much to take, it's better running away. Like that song contains so much. Joey, talk about Shocked, where it came from your standpoint.
So we wrote Shocked in April. It was the fifth song we wrote, fourth or fifth song I wrote. I don't remember where in order it came during that weekend. But there was a couple things that led up to Shocked. First, I got to tell the Fuzzy story, or I can't tell Shocked.
This is the appropriate time to start explaining fuzzies, shocks, wormholes, the crystal.
Yeah. So we always knew that they crashed through a wormhole and that they were malcontent aliens, but we didn't know why or how. And when we met over the Thanksgiving session, Jon has a whole file or folder of songs that he would sing with River. And he had this song that he went, "How many fuzzies are you?" And he played it for me. And his exact words were to me, "Joey, I have this song. How many fuzzies are you?" He played it to me. He goes, "I want to use this lyric in a Disco Biscuits song, and I don't want to change one word of it. How do I do that?" And we sat there for maybe 2 or 3 minutes in dead silence. And then I was like, I got it. And I was inspired I had gone to a birthday party for my girlfriend's dad at one point, and like a friend of his was telling a story about how like when he was in Wisconsin, they were all drunk. And he was like, when we would drive home from the bar, the guy with the fewest amount of DUIs would drive home from the bar. But in this moment, I was like, what if a fuzzy at first it was a drink. What if a fuzzy is a drink and they're all drinking on the spaceship, and that is how, or doing it's a drug or a drink, and they're doing fuzzies, and that is ultimately how they end up crashing, right? And they decide who flies the spaceship based off of who's had the most or least amount of fuzzies.
Okay.
And
so designated driver is the person who's had the fewest fuzzies.
Right. So they all go around the spaceship being like, "How many fuzzies are you? How many fuzzies are you?"
This is a mystery that Biscuits fans have been trying to solve for more than a year, guys. And here you have it. The answer, "How many fuzzies are you?" is a way of asking, are you actually okay to drive the spaceship?
Yes, exactly. And when I said this to Jon...
Should we just get an Uber and come back and get the car tomorrow?
Exactly. When I said this to Jon, he just lit up. It was one of those moments when he was like, you figured it out. I asked you how I could do this, and now you've given me what I needed to do it. And so we always knew that the Wormhole song would be "How Many Fuzzies Are You?" But we didn't end up writing it. I think it was the 9th or 10th song we wrote. But after that first session, I was thinking more and more about these characters, and I was like, they're electronic aliens. They're not going to be drinking on the spaceship. How would an electronic alien get high? And then I was like, they would get shocked. And I always like, I've always liked one-word hooks. Like I like Astronaut, how it's a one-word hook. And I honestly thought I was thinking a little bit of like David Bowie, a little bit with Fame. And I just, in my head, I was like, shocked. you know? And so we had the loop. It was one of the loops we had picked out over our November session. And I just kind of, we got, this is the second session. We started playing the loop. I started singing Shocked over it. And Jon immediately said, hey, I like that. And we started writing. And I'm a Guns N' Roses fan. So I was a little bit inspired by the song Night Train because it's sort of that same, like the idea of this song is they've been getting high. They're at the end of their rope. Something bad is about to happen. And so the lyrics are, and it really is on the nose. 420 fever blisters my brain. I'm telling the audience they're doing drugs, right?
Yeah.
This ship can go faster, but you'll go insane. They're being reckless. Too amped too. Amped is like if a fuzzy is the joint and getting shocked is getting high, getting amped is like getting blitzed, you know? So it's like if a beer is the drink, and getting drunk is getting high. Getting amped is getting wasted, right? So those are like the way that I think about these terms. Too amped to sense any trouble, can't stay in the lanes, will get you nowhere, or will get you noticed someday. So it's like we're on a ship, we're acting crazy, we're really fucked up, and something bad's about to happen. And then the second verse.
Wait, hold on one second. There was a concept that we were banding back and forth, which was that when they drive the ship, they connect electronically to the ship itself, and they can make the ship go faster and slower by like their electrical bond with the spacecraft, and the spacecraft will speed up based on their bond. But there have been pilots in the past who've gone too fast and have never come back from that. And so we were kind of talking about like the ship can actually destroy them while they're flying it if they're not careful. And then when they enter into shocks and, the fuzzy crystal, and then they drive way more. It's way more fun and interesting to drive, but they have this thing where if they go too fast, they'll go insane. So I think that's what that lyric was, like a direct statement of that.
That's right. I always liken them to Avatar, how like the Avatar aliens connect with the planet. These species connect to electronics in the similar way. So in order to fly the ship, they plug in instead of arms and hands, they have these like, they're kind of like wires, but they're more biological than that. They're kind of like wires and they're more biological than that. And they can plug into the ship. And then the other thing was, and my friend Kobe, he's a crystal guy. He helped me out with this. We had the term fuzzies, but we didn't exactly know what it was. And he helped me think of the concept of the polyfuzia crystal, which is what makes their planet electronic. It's mined and it exists in the core of their planet. It creates this electronic, an electronic environment or atmosphere, which has caused them to evolve. And they mine it, and it powers their spaceship, and it powers the freeze, and it's the core power. Like it's alien what plutonium is to us is what the polyfuzia crystal is to them, and they call it the fuzzy crystal for short. And if they stick their wires in it, they get shocked. So the fuzzy conversation started with this song that Jon said to River, and he wanted to sing it because it makes him happy to think about his son on stage.
Yeah.
But then
no, that's not the real reason. The real reason is I tried like 600 words to replace fuzzy with, and they all ruined the song. I like literally, and so when I was pitching the idea to Joey, I knew in the back of my mind that it was going to take at least 600 tries to replace the word fuzzy. So it might be easier to just demand that we stay with the word
the
fuzzy.
Entire narrative be built around this concept.
Because you can't change that word. The whole part doesn't work anymore.
But now the planet's Polyfuzia, and the aliens are Polyfusions.
Okay.
And the crystal became the Polyfuzia crystal, all because of this song that he sang to River. And Shocked came from this song they said to River, and obviously How Many Fuzzies Are You came from this song. And we actually talk more in the wormhole about sensors overloaded. This is what they warn you about. And that alludes to what Jon was saying, how there have been mishaps with people getting shocked on the spaceship, and they warned you not to do this, but they're doing it anyway.
In verse 2, the cracks in the windshield, it almost sounds like they're pushing it too far, that the ship is starting to buckle under the pressure, just as they're starting to buckle under the pressure of their failed mission.
That's exactly right. Well, that line is both literal and figurative, right? Yeah. I drive a Jeep Wrangler, and in Colorado, the stones from the street kick up into your windshield every winter, and you start with this little ding. And sure enough, over the next couple days, especially if you run the defogger, it just shatters across the whole windshield.
Yes.
And so when I wrote that line, it was very much literally cracks in the windshield spider every which way. They seem to start nowhere and they shatter the pane, but it's spelled P-A-N-E.
Yeah.
And then so in my head with the aliens, they're taking on meteors and they're being reckless. So they're taking on, their windshield is actually getting hit with space rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
But then also their brain and their mental makeup is starting to crack and the cracks are starting to show. So it's as literal in my life is literal in their life. And it's also figurative in their life. But the Guns N' Roses, I'm a West Coast running. One bad mother got a rattlesnake suitcase under my arm. It's like 420 fever blisters my brain. This ship can go faster, but you'll go insane. 2 amp 2, sense any trouble, can't stay in the lane. We'll get you. Notice someday, but 2 days on that day. Yeah. So that was also the little bit of Night Train in there that I was inspired by when I was writing that.
That's great. And Jon, why don't you play the demo, which I think, if I recall correctly, does feature some of Joey's vocals in the background.
Yeah, the actual song does too. I do the "We're Getting."
Mind you, Joey came over to the studio like 5 times that winter. And every single time he had a fresh windshield that had just started splintering. Every single time. I was like, "What? You live next to a volcano? Like, what's going on?" So this is the OG demo, yeah.
And it's sick. Oh, I forgot about that part.
Gotta love those Atlanta hip hop hats in there going. That was the clubby. After I made that loop, I was like, that's the clubbiest thing I've ever made.
Yeah. So two points I want to make. One, right? Like on this planet, the planet's ruled by a queen, and the sun, she wants the sun to go prove himself. So she gives him this job as the captain of a spaceship who's supposed to go out and discover some form of alien life. Sort of like we would explore the deep sea, they would go discover alien life. And they've got a contraption on the spaceship called the Freeze, where if they find alien life, they can pulsate like an island body and flash freeze it so they can collect specimens. So the captain and his crew are sent on a job to find alien life, but all they're doing is taking shocks off the crystal, and they're not doing their job.
Yes.
And they're, I think we wrote like they're on an intergalactic bender, nearing the end of the line. So that's kind of the setup of this. They've been in space, not doing their job, getting shocked, and something bad's about to happen. The other point I wanted to make, we had talked about maybe having like an overture type song or something like that when we started writing.
The words space overture were mentioned in a lot of conversations around this time.
Yeah, we had that idea. And when we were writing the song, it was Jon who just said the rolling through outer space with my brothers. And the second he said it, I was like, that's how this has to start, right? That is the perfect line to start the space opera. It says exactly what's going on. It's fun. And it also shows that we're not taking ourselves too seriously with this thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real story with real characters and real emotions, but it's meant to be fun and funny. And that line, it was just, the second he said it, I knew Shocked was going to be the first song, and that was going to be the first line of the rock opera.
Now, Shocked was debuted on August 26th, 2022, and over the last year and a half, Shocked has really evolved into a huge set piece, culminating most recently in its place in set 2 during the New Year's Eve performance, but also the Nughuffer Shocked from Bisco Land.
The Nug Shocker.
From the standpoint of a live performance, Shocked is a song that it seems like you and the other three guys really enjoy playing. It seems like a fun song to play.
I think Shocked is so ridiculous. And I think the line that Joey was just talking about does have a psychological effect on the band, because it does make us feel like a team. And the song is kind of ridiculous beyond that. So it is very much like different. And you're not going to build it in a way that you would build a Crickets, because it doesn't have that similar flow. And so you end up in the Shocked jam, which, because we were writing these songs so fast, has no melody or ending or even direction.
Yeah.
And so Shocked is this weird situation where it's at the slowest possible dance music tempo. It is the sparsest of all the songs, meaning there's a lot of space to be filled with other people's ideas. And it has a nowhere jam inside of it, which is like a thing that the Biscuits do when we want to kind of get creative and fun. And yet we always have to do the nowhere jam out of nowhere, right? And so in this situation, we have Shocked is a nowhere jam. We're not going anywhere. We're coming right back. We're actually going down to the vocal.
Yeah.
So it has this situation where there is no requirements in the jam, and we don't talk about, okay, we got to do this to set this up for me, and I got to set this up for you. None of those conversations have ever happened in this song. And I think that's part of the reason why the band likes it so much, because it's more free.
It's a true blank canvas, including when you come back from the jam, which half the time seems to catch everyone, including the other three guys, off guard, because it's a sandbox. You can do anything in that Shocked space. There are no rules.
Well, I kind of think about the vocal at the end of the Shock jam as like when a hypnosis person is waking you up from hypnosis. And,
Like that.
and they wake you up when your time that you've paid for is up, not when you're ready to come out of the hypnosis.
So if we pay more, the Shock jam will go longer.
I mean, look, it's just like one of those things where I have to say the lyrics in a way that is at a moment where if people are not paying any attention, which a lot of times no one in the band is paying any attention because we're so deep in whatever the nowhere jam has turned into, I have to find a spot inside of that where when I come up and sing a couple words to the vocal that everybody snaps out of it.
Yeah.
And, luckily these guys are all pros and they're good at that.
Well, from Shocked, the band... I went to say the band. I didn't mean the band. I meant the crew
On the
has
ship.
mishap that is the inciting incident of the story, the wormhole. Wormhole is a significant song for many reasons, not the least of which it is the first song that you guys wrote together based on a Biscuits jam, and a very recent Biscuits jam at that. The April 9th, 2022 I-Man. So roughly either the day of or day after Joey had first shared with me Plan of Attack and One Chance. We see that amazing show, the Caterpillar I-Man Jam. And during that jam, I turn to Joey and I go, "What is this?" Thinking it's one of his new space opera songs that I don't recognize yet, because it was so tight, so seemingly composed. It felt like something the band had been playing for years. But of course, it was just one of those magical on-stage moments of inspiration that are so prevalent at Disco Biscuits shows. But that moment stayed with many of us, Joey included, and later on became the basis of an important part of the song Wormhole. So, Joey, a lot of people have been wondering about this process of writing to jams, even to the point of speculating, are the songs already written? They're just playing an instrumental version. But talk to us a little bit about how you write to a jam, how you and Jon have incorporated this into your collaborative process, especially as it played out in this initial instance with the composition of Wormhole.
Yeah, well, I knew that it was something I wanted to try out, writing over a jam. And the Biscuits had done it before. There's precedent. Minions came from a jam. Strobe Lights and Martinis came from a triple jam. And I remember at the show, so I had wrote that set list with Mark for that mission show. And during that part, I was like, are they actually going to go into I-Man? Because it was so not I-Man at the point until they hit it. And listen, I love it when the Biscuits show their hand early and you can hear what's coming. I also, when they do it right, love it when it comes out of nowhere and they come from some crazy type 2 thing. And I remember being at the show and they were playing that blah, 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 and just being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I think that this is the Wormhole. So it's got that sort of chaoticness, but beauty to it that would be great for the type of vibe we're going as they're going through a wormhole. And I even after the show, Mark and I hang out a lot after the show back at the hotel, and this soundboard had come out very fast, and we actually listened to it. I wanted to hear it again, and I said to Mark, Mark, I think this is going to be the song when they go through the wormhole. And then Jon and I actually went on vacation together right after with Lisa and Andrea and River to the mountains right after that show. And you had texted me saying you think it should be a song, and I said something to Jon. I was like, we got to make the song, and we kind of knew that and we were going to run out of loops eventually.
Yeah.
So we knew that we kind of knew had marked that as the Wormhole song, and we always knew that the Fuzzy song was going to be the Wormhole song, but we didn't exactly know how it was going to come all together, and it just took us sitting down and figuring it out to actually write it. But that was a situation where Jon rebuilt the jam in Ableton from scratch, basically using the electronic music orchestra that he had talked about before, and then we built around it.
Yeah, because I didn't hear it. Joey told me this should be a song, and I wasn't sure like exactly what we were gonna do. And you know, it's just one of those situations where I was like, all right, let's just see what happens. Because I didn't have any preconceived notion as to where this was going. So I was just like, all right, let's just do it. Let's just make something happen. And then obviously the Biscuit version, we took the 2-track, basically we just took the file off at Nugs and then we put it into Ableton. And then I just kind of rebuilt everything in that one critical spot where the hits happened. Because I was like, well, you know, at the end of the day, maybe I do like a Jimmy Page Whole Lotta Love thing in these hits, and it's awesome. Yeah. And we don't have that in any of our other songs. So I was like, let's just build around that. Wasn't quite sure what the section was. It's like a rising chord progression. The Biscuits do rising chord progressions, you know, like people eat oatmeal. Like we do it all the time. And I wasn't sure if making a song out of a rising chord progression was going to be that unique for us. But, you know, whatever. It's music. Let's make it. So I built the electric version. And when I built the electric version, I was able to kind of like take the foot off the accelerator of the rising chord progression because I was able to actually change the notes that were doing the different things. And so the accelerating chord progression doesn't really happen till the end of the song where it's really necessary. And there's some parts in the beginning where it kind of goes in a different direction. And, that was when once the electric version was done and I was able to put that kind of quarter note, like shoulder popping beat into it, which is where we sing How Many Fuzzies Are You? And it's kind of like a halftime dance beat. And that halftime dance beat got me really excited about the song. And that kind of happened because taking a techno orchestra and just making beats is really fun. You end up with cool stuff pretty much every time.
The section from the Caterpillar I-Man serves a real function here. It essentially is the musical version of traveling through that wormhole. It's dramatic. It's intense. It being in the audience during that, it's percussive. It hits you in the chest. It really has the impact. It serves a musical purpose, but also a story purpose. So Joey, take us through the story at this point. The crew is deep into their binge. They are many fuzzies in, and we're now changing perspectives from kind of a collective rolling through outer space with our brothers to the perspective of one particular individual member of the crew.
Yeah. So, originally the idea was that they got messed up and crashed into the wormhole. I think the narrative has evolved a little bit in my mind that the captain is very shocked and he sees the wormhole and in his psychedelic stupor decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to point this ship. I'm not going to tell anybody. And I'm going to point this ship at this wormhole and we're going to see what happens on the other side. So it could be either way. But the idea is that he's plugged into the ship and his crew sees this ship going at the wormhole and they're kind of like asking him, how many fuzzies are you? How many fuzzies are you? And he's just ignoring them and he's got this thing pointed at the wormhole and they're starting to get sucked into it. And then the lyrics, so there were a couple songs where Jon and I would freestyle. Tourist is a really good example of that. And this song is a really good example of that, where we would just freestyle for a couple minutes, and the large majority of the freestyle gets thrown in the trash, but we pull a couple of really good nuggets from it. So the idea of this song is it's sort of the captain's inner monologue, right? He's not saying this out loud, but he's thinking this to himself. And sensors overloaded. I mean, he is literally his sensors, right? Because his electronic are getting fried because he's plugged into the ship and the wormhole and the ship are interacting and there's so much electronic pulsing. And we talked a little bit earlier. This is what they warn you about. Don't do too many shocks and do crazy stuff in space. Space has exploded. Pretty sure we got us into it now. I was really trying to, again, put myself in the shoes of this captain. And you think a lot about captains on ships. The captain goes down with his ship.
Yes.
That's a very common saying. And so pretty sure I got us into it now was sort of his like, oh, oh shit, I've really gotten us into it now, basically. And so that was part of our freestyle. And then, the second verse, we actually had a funny line. There was an original line. This is play it close to the robe. But it became everybody plays a role like Space Dust. I'm into it now. And I love that role. It's one of my favorite lines. I think in the Biscuits world, especially, it takes a village, for a band like this to go forward. And I think about my part in this thing and the role that I play and the role that the band members play and the role that all these other people play. You play with the podcast and Steve plays with some of the stuff and just all the fans, the different fans that either make art or just go to shows and participate. Everybody sort of has a role to play in this community, in life. And that line is really about this captain, thinking about what role is he about to play.
Yeah.
And like Space Dust, he's into it now, thinking it's a door or thinking it's a portal to a different world that's pretty self-explanatory,
Yeah.
He doesn't know where this wormhole is going to lead him, but he's got this sense. He's got the sense it's either going to kill them all, but in the back of his head, he feels like he doesn't know why or what, but this is going to take him somewhere that he wasn't expecting and that he wants to go to.
This is the Stargate from 2001. You've got the lights flashing on his face. He knows they're about to enter into something completely unknown. He has no idea what lays on the other side of this, but he knows that this is his destiny. This is his fate right now. He has to live up to his role and responsibility as the captain.
That's exactly right. And they didn't know about this wormhole. This was something that they kind of stumbled upon in deep space. So they have no idea what's on the other side of it. Their electronics don't tell them anything about it. He's in a psychedelic, altered state, and he's just pointed his ship and his crew, and he's put everybody in danger. But in the back of his head, he just has this feeling like it's going to work out for the best.
Jon, why don't you share with us now that early demo we have of Wormhole?
I mean, a lot of my job during the demo is to pick a gangster snare, get a really dope snare sound.
So, Jon, I remember this and Times Square being finished roughly around the same time. You, Lisa, and Riv were in LA staying at Steve's house. We were all hanging out with Kevin, and we could not stop listening to this in Times Square. And I got the sense by how many times you would play the two songs and then go back and play them again that you were very pleased with how these two came out. It's a big departure, and we're jumping all over chronologically in terms of when these demos were actually cut. So you're not hearing some of the early, very raw demos apart from what you heard, for example, from Plan of Attack. But I noticed by this point that the process had really started to come to fruition, and the demos I was hearing were really far along, that there was a lot of development, both in terms of the composition and the songwriting, the lyrics and the music. By this point, did you feel like you guys had kind of hit your groove? Where were you at by the time you were working on Wormhole?
I think we had gotten better at producing and better at our systems, but we had picked all the low-hanging fruit. So now it was kind of like the man up part, the hard part was coming because we knew the songs we had left to do were all like very crucial, and we didn't really know how to make them as exceptional as possible. And so, this was a weird song for me because the Wormhole was this jam where we did hits, but the actual final, this version of the song, which is pretty final, like we had already worked the chorus a bunch, right? So there was a couple older versions of the chorus. There was some different takes on it, but the general vibe of this song was so fun and so cool that I was kind of thinking whatever we did was going to be crazy because this song to me, just the fact that we got that level of like funky techno that builds and sounds like you're hitting a wormhole and has all the lyrical moments hit. The fact that we were able to hit all those pointers with that song, which was basically made in a day and a half, out of a jam, was to me insane. But yeah, we also had the upcoming task of like, now we have to write the big songs for this thing. Yeah. What do you think, Joey?
Yeah, I think Wormhole was number 9, song number 9. Wormhole and Times Square were 9 and 10. So we had gotten more than halfway. We always kind of knew it was going to be a 14-song story arc. And it was just, I do think we were hitting a groove. Jon, I watched Jon get better in the studio. I mean, every session he got better at doing this. Aaron from the second session on was a major part of it, and he was able to really help out with some of these cool sounds. I was getting more confident in my abilities to either write stuff or pull stuff from Jon and get lyrics down. But almost every writing session we had, we'd kind of come into it with, there's always that like, what's going to happen, this weekend. And then on the other side of it, you're like, oh my God, like this is really working and this is amazing. And these songs, I loved them when we did them. The Wormhole is one of my favorites. I just love the groove. The fuzzy groove is just so dancey and cool and different. I think I love the fact that the fuzzy line to Jon and I is like a really important line. I know some fans think it's this silly line or whatever, but to us, it actually means a lot in the way I know what it means to him. And I think it was an early part of our collaboration that really set the tone for what this whole thing was going to be. And so the song just means a lot to me. And it's a huge part of the story. Them going to the wormhole and coming out on the other side. And, we were definitely starting to hit a groove for sure in our abilities.
And Wormhole was a song that, at least from my perspective, pretty immediately, as soon as it was debuted, became an important part of any set that it was played in. A very weird, unique song. There's not much else that's like it in the Biscuits catalog, in the broader musical landscape. You can't really categorize it very easily, but it has created some really great musical moments. One that stands out for me was the first inverted version in Hartford. And I remember, Joey, you being really excited when you had figured out, you had cracked the code of how to invert Wormhole. You figured out where it would go, where the jam in would be. And that's something that I think has really propelled the song, because once you figure out where you can break it, then you know right where you can create all of the space and where the jams can be.
Yeah, I mean, inverting songs is something that I think is one of the coolest things the Biscuits do. I've always thought that. I think it's an incredible tool. So almost immediately I was thinking about inverting these songs and pushing for the inversions. Twisted in the Road was the first one. It was funny. This song, I was in the drive to that run, was thinking about inverting it. And then I think the set list where they actually inverted it, Harrison wrote for Mark, and I saw I'd already wanted to do that, so I'd been thinking about it. So backstage, we talked about how to do it, and it was great. They haven't done it since. We'll have to bring that back into the repertoire. But I inverting songs is, I think, just it's the coolest thing. It's another way. I mean, in a Biscuit set, there's a couple areas where you can create new, right? The intro jams, the outro jams, and inversions. And of course there's type 2 jams and shocked and freeze and stuff like that, but that segment between a song and the end of another song is always going to be fresh.
Yeah.
And so, the what Biscuits fans love, they love to guess. They love to be surprised and they love to guess. And so that element of not knowing what's coming because you're going into the end of something first, I think is just, I mean, no other band really does it. And, you know, from the moment we wrote these songs, I was thinking about inverting them and how we could invert them. And it's been exciting to watch all the new inversions. And we're going to have more. I can't wait. We're going to have a inverted firewall exchange at some point, I'm sure. And we're going to have all these other inversions. It's going to be awesome.
Let's move on to the next song, the last song in the first chapter.
Well, it's the next to last song in the first chapter, but we've already talked about the last song in the first chapter.
I keep tripping myself up on this. Thank you for keeping me on track, Joey. And that is Twisted in the Road. Very different song from Wormhole. There's a lot of big ideas, thoughts and feelings and emotions expressed through this song. It's also a song that from its earliest demos, I recognized as being a very significant, this was the song. And it was very much early on. This was the first breakout song from all of the rock opera songs. It's the song that's been played the most out of all of them. It was the first to get inverted. It's anthemic, but it also has a lot of depth and heart to it. And that is, of course, Twisted in the Road. Joey, talk a little bit about Twisted in that third position, coming out of the wormhole. What is the purpose of this song within the greater context of the story?
Yeah, so in the story, we've got the characters on the ship, right? The captain and his crew, which there's, you know, his best friend and first mate. There's a scientist engineer, and there's sort of like a more of a special forces type enforcer alien. But the other character is the queen of the planet, and she's the mother of the captain. She's kind of put him on this spaceship, and she is in Polyfuzia, the other planet. And this song is really about, you know, the idea of losing something, right? So essentially what's happening is when the captain goes through the wormhole in his ship, they fall off of their air traffic control systems. And whoever's in the air traffic control room tells the queen's advisors, hey, we lost the prince's spaceship. And we don't know where it is. And there's a good chance he's dead. And, you know, to go back to the Billy Madison illusion, comparisons, the advisors to the queen do not like the son.
Yes.
He has been given everything his whole life. They've worked so hard to be in the good graces of the queen. And so they find out that he's gone, and they're pretty excited about it. And they go to the queen and they tell her, hey, you know, the captain, and we don't, I keep calling it, we don't have really good names for the characters. We kind of do, but I'll take this moment to say this story was never about the names, and we didn't want to rely on alien names in the lyrics. And other rock operas, both Chemical Warfare Brigade and Hot Air Balloon and Gamehenge, and they Tommy, right? The names are a big part of the lyrics, and we wanted to do something a little bit different.
We didn't want to sing alien names in choruses. That is true. Yes.
Yeah.
And so we always really just had the characters, and it wasn't about their names. I'm not actually a very good name person anyways. It was about who they were and not what they were called. So the advisors go to the queen, tell them that the ship's gone and that he's presumed dead, and that it's time for her to let him go.
Yeah.
And she walks out on the veranda of her castle or whatever it is, or a boat, her palace, and she looks at the night sky. And the gist of the song is that they're telling me you're gone, but I hope you have just gotten yourself into some trouble, and that you found, and that I've given you the tools to get yourself out of trouble, and that I'll see you again. And so that's the gist of the song. Now in that November planning session, Jon played me the loop. And I immediately was just in love with it. And I knew there was going to be this song where there's this song about loss. And I felt that loss in the loop. And I'll let Jon take it from here. He actually had some lyrics that are still in this song that he wrote before we ever wrote the space opera. Now we rewrote them in a lot of places and we changed some lines and we did some things to it. But this song, I think, to Jon is actually about loss. And that's why I think it resonated with me and this character so much. So I'll let Jon take it a little bit from there.
Well, the song was written, there was like a week-long session that I did by myself in California, where I basically just locked myself in my studio every day and made a new song every single day. And Shocked is one of those loops. Twisted in the Road was one of those loops. And there was, I forget what the other ones were, but there was a bunch of, I got a lot of good stuff out of that. And so it was actually Crunk Mike who I sent the loops to, because we were just starting the podcast, and I sent the loops to Crunk and was like, what do you think? And he was like, oh man, number 7. I love number 7. And number 7 was Twisted in the Road. And so I've just basically bumped Twisted in the Road to the top because, you know, I figured, you know, if that was how people were going to react to it, then it was pretty good. But then I could never figure out the drum beat for it until, you know, I kind of knew how the lyrics were going to go, and I kind of knew like how it felt, but I couldn't get a drum beat to work for it. And so if you hear, it's just a kick drum.
Yeah.
So I took the loop and I just put a kick drum in, and I took out all the other drum beats that were confusing me. And then I just sang the song. And these are like basically how I heard the lyrics. So this is like the first version with, oh, these are old lyrics.
These are the old lyrics.
This is the very first demo we cut with Conrad the third day of our first session.
Yeah, so this is,
I still hear these lyrics every time you play it.
yeah, they were catchy. But these are, yeah. So here I added a hat. But I'm just trying not to screw the song up with the drums. It's really what I'm trying to do, because I couldn't get the drums right. And then I did a lot of like yelling and screaming over these chords and stuff. And we had a lot of things to choose from as far as melodies and ideas. And Aaron and Joey were in the studio kind of like working together while I was sorting out the drum issue. And Aaron came in and added a few different chords under the lyrics, and Joey had changed a few of the lyrics, and we ended up with this version, which had flow and had energy and had meaning and had the emotion in it suddenly. And so it was kind of cool because I had a lot of faith in this loop and this idea, but like it was really a team effort on turning it into the song that it became.
'Cause I've heard this song before, oh, too many times before, and you fly away on your own, trusting they look after you. Would you say it's easy to walk?
Jon, as a new parent, is there an element of an expression of your protective instinct toward Riv in this song?
Well, the reason that I did the week locking myself in the studio by myself was I knew River was already conceived at that point, but wasn't born. And I knew that I needed to stock some music because I might not have time. So I made time to sit in the studio alone and just work and do a new song every day so I could like get 10, 15 days in and have a lot of new music sitting around. And it was because I knew River was coming and was going to be a full-time job at that point. So this is before the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if we had the bridge.
No bridge.
Yeah, no bridge. And this was basically the loop originally, right here, with the little organ thing and the little bell. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that don't know if the lyrics had that idea to it, but I do know that I made a lot of music in advance. You know, kids will motivate you in the strangest ways, and that's the way I took care of it.
It has the seeds of the anthemic song that it became present, but it's much more subdued at this point. It's much more melancholy.
Yeah, there's no bass and there's no drums.
Yeah, so when we were writing this, right, you know, we were really trying to capture this feeling, you know, again, she feels loss, but she also feels hope that he's still somehow living and that she's going to see him again, which is good. The Queen really sings 2 songs, this and Why We Dance, so it's like this is she loses him, and Why We Dance is ultimately when he comes back. But you know, some of the lines in there, you know, twisted in the road, maybe you were rolling for far too long, and if there's somewhere you could fly, maybe you could take to the sky. You know, it's just, you know, it's all about, you know, you've been out there. I know you've kind of had trouble finding your way, you know, and I just hope that I'll see you again. And then the bridge came, you know, I actually have this great video. It's amazing. We'll have to release it at some point, but it's the first time Aaron and Jon had ever played the full song on grand piano and his guitar, or his acoustic guitar. And that's when we added the bridge. And again, the bridge is simply just taking the first couple lines of the second verse and repackaging them over that sort of rising beat, but it really just, you know, hits, you know, and we changed the way. There's a couple of giveaways. In the first verse, or in the second verse, we say twisted in the road, maybe you were rolling. But in the bridge, we say twisted in the road, my baby, you were rolling for solid. And so we're trying to give the listener a hint that there is this familial relationship between the singer of the song and the person that has been lost. And that's one of the ways that we do it, by saying, my baby, you were rolling for far too long.
And also, you know, Aaron Magner's a bridge machine. And
yes, he is.
And yet he doesn't think he's a bridge machine. So he has this like strange anxiety process that he goes through before he plays the exact perfect bridge that you were looking for. And you have to like push Magner through. You have to initiate the bridge machine. You have to push him through. And the way that we did that was I pulled out the acoustic and he pulled out the piano. And then we were going to like launch Magner into a little jam and see if he like wrote a bridge. And he did, right? He did. This was Magner's, you know, first foray into something that he's excellent at, which is kind of finding the next part of the song immediately.
So many great moments from the space opera came off of the piano and the acoustic guitar. When there were parts, the bridge in Plan of Attack, the bridge in Twisted in the Road. There were lots of when we did the Red Supernova, the end of To Be Continued was around the piano. With me and Jon singing to Aaron and just improvising. So there was some
I think it was backstage the night of the inverted wormhole in Hartford.
That was the first time we did it in public, but we had done it down here. And there was a lot of magic created at the piano, with Aaron kind of figuring it out and us, you know, singing along to his playing the piano. And then it's really cool to see that, you know, those acoustic moments, then get, you know, reprojected or whatever the word would be in electronic form, and knowing where they came from. There's a lot of soul in the piano.
Jon, a question I asked you earlier with respect to Plan of Attack. Did you know what you had on your hands with Twisted in the Road once it was done? It was one of the songs that took a little bit longer to come out. I remember eagerly anticipating it, hoping it would be played. You saved it for City Bisco, at which point it absolutely destroyed. But it seemed like from very early on, Twisted was the quote unquote single. And I was wondering if that was something that was apparent to you and the other band members as early as it seemed to be to us when it debuted and had its impact.
Well, I definitely have had a thought for many years at this point that the band, when we have anthemic choruses, the fans really like it. I mean, you have like a song like I Man, which is still getting votes for Song of the Year, still. And what is it about? I mean, I'm In has been this song for the band for a really long time. And what is it about it? And I've always just kind of put it on the chorus of people like singing the chorus along with the band in the way that we do it. It's kind of like a stadium rock type of thing. And I definitely thought I captured that and Twisted in the Road. I don't want every song to be a stadium rocker, but you want at least one in the greater collection of songs. So I've kind of Twisted in the Road kind of became that on its own. And then I felt really good about what we were doing because I was like, oh, okay, well, now we have our stadium rock song. So now it's like this, the overview of the songs now makes a lot of sense to me. And so I was very excited about it from that point of view. It's like, it's a special, when you can write a chorus like that, it feels really good. And it really takes a lot of pressure off the rest of the songs to be that, you have it already.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Did that original version we just listened to was just you, Jon? No Magner on it?
No, Magner was on that version.
Okay.
There's versions from before that are just me, but that one is the first session that Joey, Aaron, and I did together on it.
Okay. And Aaron has been, as you've just mentioned, an instrumental part of this entire process, from writing the bridges to sitting around the acoustic and these sing-alongs that allow you to work through different elements of the songs. Jon, had you and Aaron collaborated like this in the past? I know that you and he are also working quite closely together with Nick Schmidl on The Very Moon. Talk a little bit about your history of collaborating with Aaron.
Well, I mean, Aaron and I've actually, we finished Kitchen Mitts together, which was a song that, all that stuff at the very end with the hose and the little chorus at the end. We wrote that together at his piano at his house. I don't think I've really put enough of the weight of the songwriting on Aaron's shoulders, but it has seemed that over the years, whenever we've written together, it has been very successful. But I always had this idea that I have to do it, with a guitar and, whatever I've talked about. So,
yeah.
So not using Aaron to his full potential has been like something that we're trying to change, because the guy is an endless supply of great ideas. I mean, he can literally give you 5 great ideas on anything you're trying to write immediately without any practice. You don't have to tell him the chords, literally tell him nothing, but just press record and say, give me 5 ideas. And he's going to nail it at least once, if not 5 times. He's just got this incredible, natural, childlike wonderment and just beauty and melodic timing and funkiness into everything he plays. And it's just crazy not to just let him loose on everything. And he does things right. So this song, he changes the chords in the chorus to go along with the vocals. And he didn't even mean to do it. I was like, did you just change the chords? And he was like, yeah, I just kind of felt like they were too heavy. So I just tried this. It's no big deal. You don't have to. And I was like, no, those are the right chords.
Yeah.
You found the right chords. And so he does a lot of, like, if you just kind of pay attention to the details in the fingers that he's playing, he'll make a lot of nuanced changes to the song, which end up giving the song a beauty and like a real flow that, this song was actually missing before Aaron. Like Twisted Road didn't have that flow until Aaron kind of gave it to it, but he wasn't even trying to do that, So he's just an incredible player.
So, when we started writing this, it was the pandemic, and Mark had started a company during the pandemic, Lively, and he was CEO of that. So he was very busy during the period of which we were writing this. And Aaron, early on, we told him about it. He was very excited about it. And we kind of did the first weekend together. And then Aaron kind of expressed that he really wanted to be involved. And once we brought him in, it really helped us unlock a lot of things. Mark was super supportive the whole way, right? We would send him the demos at night. He would give us feedback. He would give us a lot of input. And we've honestly, since every song since the space opera, Mark's written with us as well.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome too. They keep getting better and better. So, but bringing Aaron in at the time we did, I really think just up-leveled everything that we were doing in here. And there are just so many moments that he created in these songs that were great.
Well, we're coming to the end of this podcast installment covering the first chapter of the rock opera. Joey, just one last time, recap for us where things stand in the story as we hit this pause and look ahead to chapter 2.
Great, thanks. I think that's a really good idea because we've talked about a lot of things in a lot of order. But basically what you have is you've got the story starting with the aliens shocked in space at the end of the rope. They're sent there to do a job that they're not doing. They come across a previously undetected wormhole, which the captain decides either on purpose or not on purpose. We're not exactly sure that he's going to point the ship right at and go through. When they go through the wormhole, they fall off of their home planet's air traffic control system. And the queen, the captain's mother, gets told that her son's spaceship has disappeared and he's probably dead. And she goes out on her veranda at her palace and she looks up at the sky and sings Twisted in the Road, which is really a song, you're hoping that he has just gotten himself into trouble and he's going to figure his way out. And then what she hopes is true. They make it to the other side of the wormhole. The captain had been plugged into the spaceship when they went through the wormhole. So he got all these sort of electronic overload. His circuits were fried. And he was in a coma. And while he was in a coma on the other side of the wormhole, his crew had learned all about this planet that they find themselves outside of. They learn about Earth and about hands and about people, and all their instrumentation tells them everything they need to know so that when the captain wakes up, they explain to the captain, hey, you were lost. It was pretty hairy for a little while, but we have found ourselves outside of this new planet. And if we get our act together and we stop getting high and we have another plan of attack, we can do what we were sent to do, which is ultimately capture foreign alien life and bring it home to our planet, which will thereby, help us reach our legacy. You'll prove yourself worthy of the throne. But we really need to take a different course of action to do it. So we're basically on the spaceship. The captain, by the end of the song, is convinced that his crew is going to get him where he wants to go. And they are ready to take the next step in their journey, which is they're going to have to fire the freeze.
And with that, guys, we're going to leave you there. Stay tuned. Chapter 2 of this saga dropping mid-February, covering Times Square, Freeze, tourists, and Spaga's Last Stand. We will once again convene to provide you with the commentary, the director's cut from Jon and Joey, to explain the songs, talk you through where they came from, play you some demos, and hopefully give you all the context you need to really appreciate this long-term project that Jon and Joey have been on. Jon, why don't you play us out with that other version of Twisted? And we will see you guys next time back here on Touchdowns All Day. Thanks, Joey.
Thanks, Max.
Short circuit in my brain, tell me how you're folding. I wanna know. And if there's somewhere you could hide, maybe you could go in beyond your own. And they say you'll be gone, and you stay out too long. And they say it's easy to walk away, feeling like you stole it now. And the hand on my mind set the stage for the crime. Let it run and let it roll.
Well, there you have it, guys. I'm blown away. Are you blown away? Half of this stuff I didn't know. I've been hearing about this since April 2022. I've been listening to the demos as they've been recorded, and probably half of the stuff that Jon and Joey explained to me today, I still didn't know. There are so many layers to this story. There are so many layers to this collaboration, and I am so excited to continue to go deeper and deeper into the history and mythology of Revolution in Motion with you over the next few months. So again, guys, please get out there, tweet, X, post on Instagram. We're up on TikTok now. Share the podcast, give us a 5-star review, tell your friends about the Biscuits, tell your friends about Revolution in Motion, and tell your friends about Touchdowns All Day. While you're at it, throw us a follow. Jon's at Barber Shreds on check us out major socials. touchdownsallday.com for more information about the podcast, our sponsors, and for links to all of the episodes we've got in the archives. Touchdowns All Day is produced by Crunk Mike and Osiris Media with special help from executive producer Dr. Vic Sopti. We'd like to thank our photographer, Tarek Gracer, for providing us with all the great images that accompany the show. We'd like to thank our photographer, Tarek Gracer, for providing all of the great photos that accompany the episodes. I'd also like to give some special thanks to the entire Disco Biscuits organization, the entire band, 1111 Management, Andrew Kaplan, the Biscuits Internet Project, Andy Pisani, Mike Walsh, Rich Steele, Drew Granicelli, Scott McClintock, Think Tank Dubs. Special shout out in this episode for Andrea Rivers. Andrea is Joey's partner, and very often I think that projects like this are made possible not just by the people who are working on them day in and day out, but by their partners. Dre does so much for this community. She does so much for Joey, and I wanted to single her out for special thanks for everything she's done to help out behind the scenes on this. And while we're at it, I'm also going to thank Lisa for allowing us to take over her Jon and Rivers home. I want to thank Lisa for being such a generous and gracious host. And I'll also thank Avery McMahon again for putting up with me and giving me a ride to the studio. Well, guys, on behalf of Barber, Crunk, Joey, the entire Touchdowns All Day family, I'm Max Dawson saying, see you next time.
We're mass communicating. We're mass communicating. We're mass communicating.
Osiris.